Well, good morning, or if it's afternoon, good afternoon. It could be evening, good evening. We're recording it in the morning, but you're watching this week's Camp Taji Chapel on our Facebook feed. Something new for all of us. These are weird and changing times, and as your chaplain team and unit ministry team, we are adapting and looking to find ways that we can still connect while we don't have our Protestant services on Sundays here at Camp Taji. So thanks for tuning in, no matter the time of day. My name is Joel Reynolds. I am the chaplain for the 168 Military Police Battalion and a member of the Camp Taji UMT. And we're excited to try this out. Hopefully this is a short-term thing, but as long as we are able to and have the means to, we're going to continue to upload messages and worship as a way to connect with you so we can stay connected to you so you can stay connected to God. That's our goal in all of this. So I'm excited this morning to open the Word for you and to open the Word together so we can see what God has for us. Before I do that, let's take a moment to pray and then we'll dig into the Word together. Father, for each person who's watching this, the lives that they have, the jobs that they have, the families that they have, we give thanks. And Father, though we can't be together physically, the amazing thing of your grace, the amazing thing of your Spirit is that we stay connected through your Spirit, through the fellowship that we have in Jesus Christ. And in him and through him and by him, right now I pray for those who are watching. I pray for all of those across Camp Taji that you bless them deeply. May our faithfulness in you grow. May it give us strength. May it give us diligence to do the work every single day that we are called here to do on our missions. I pray for those who open the Word today. And we do it together, God, and that you show us new insights, fresh ways to know your Son, Jesus Christ, to serve him and to love him more because he loves us. And he has served us by giving his life on the cross for us. So bless us now today, and I pray it all in your Son's name. Amen and amen. Now, I cut my teeth in ministry as a youth minister. That's where I got in and doing it. And my first youth ministry job, my first full-time youth ministry job, I was still finishing seminary. So I lived in Chattanooga, Tennessee. I worked at a church there in Chattanooga, but I went to seminary in Birmingham, Alabama. So 2 days a week, I commuted to Birmingham, which is about 2.5 hours away, and I would go to classes all day, and then I would drive back 2.5 hours on the back end. And in between those seminary days, I was doing youth ministry. One time in particular, I was coming back from Birmingham, and I was in a rush because I wanted to get home for the big rivalry football game between two of the high schools that most of my students in the student ministry came from. So I am hustling back to make it to this game because that was kind of the big thing in the fall, was to be there. So as I was driving, I was doing something that I tend to do no matter what. I was speeding. I was moving along. Now, in my mind, I justified my breaking of the law because I was getting back to do ministry. I was doing the Lord's work, right? So as I'm zipping back into Chattanooga, I'm going across this bridge that goes over the Tennessee River, a pretty significant bridge there in Chattanooga, and I look behind me and I see a Chattanooga police officer, Chattanooga's finest, pulling out behind me. As I get across the bridge, he hadn't turned his lights on yet. I thought, you know what, I'm just going to take this very first exit. So I slide off the exit. I'm going down, and I look back in my rearview mirror, and I realize he wasn't following me anymore. At least he maybe didn't see where I went. So I go up a few roads, and I turn left, and I go another road, and I turn right, and then I get back onto a thoroughfare that will take me to where I was going. So just a few minutes out of my way, and I'm going to be all right, and the police didn't catch me. At least that's what I thought, because all of a sudden, there he is again behind me with his lights on. So he pulls me over, and he comes up to the car, and he says, "Hey, what are you doing today?" I said, "Just driving home." He said, "Where are you driving home to?" I said, "Well, I'm going over to this community. I'm actually going to the football game tonight." He said, "Oh." He goes, "Well, why did you get off at that exit?" I said, "I got off at that exit because that's just the way I was going." He knew what I knew. That was not the way you would go to this game. So he says, "Let me have your driver's license and your registration." So I hand it to him, and he goes back, and he comes back from his car, and he leans in the window, and he goes, "You were trying to get away from me, weren't you?" Now I'm going to double down now. I'm doubling down on my criminal activities. And I said, absolutely not. I said, I was going this way to get to the game. He said, you weren't, and I don't appreciate that. And he goes, so I'm going to cite you for speeding, and I'm going to cite you for evasion. And I said, not my best choice. My response to him, again, just because I'm a chaplain doesn't mean I'm perfect, all right? I'm pretty close, but sometimes I make mistakes. And I said, I would cite you, officer, for going ahead and filling up your quota. Not the best words to say. Not the best words to say. So I take the ticket, I take my stuff back, he's mad, I'm mad, and I slam down the citation and I take off and I go to the game. A couple of days later, I go onto the phone line to call into the courthouse because you can just pay your fine. I was like, I own it. I broke the law. I was speeding. I'll just pay the fine. So I called the courthouse and I said, my name's Joel Reynolds. Here's my citation number. I was just calling to go ahead and pay over the phone for my fee. And the lady goes, okay, hold on just a second. You can hear her clicking on there. And all of a sudden she comes back on the phone and she says, you're going to have to come to court. I said, I have to come to court for a speeding ticket? And she said, well, not normally, but the police officer who pulled you over, in his report about you, wrote in all capital letters, do not settle. And I said, what does that mean? She said, it means you can't pay it over the phone. You got to come and see the judge. So that's when I knew I was really in trouble because I had made this police officer mad. So a couple of weeks go by, it comes time for my court date, and I go into the courthouse and I wait for them to call my name, and I walk over and the judge is sitting at his desk and he looks down at me and I look up at him and he goes, I know you. I said, I know you, Judge, because not only did I have to go to court, not only could I not settle my ticket, I was in front of one of the deacons from the church that I worked at. Why? Because I was guilty. Why? Because I was dead to rights. Have you ever heard that phrase, dead to rights? It's a strange phrase. We don't use it a whole lot in modern times because it actually came from several hundred years ago. To be dead to rights when you broke the law was to be likened to when you actually physically died. To be dead to rights was a way of meaning you need to call the coroner and you need to call the priest because this person is definitely dead. To be so guilty, to be called dead to rights means it is absolutely certain that I, Joel Reynolds, broke the law. I, Joel Reynolds, was so guilty that the priest in the corner could go ahead and be called in when it comes to my case. The guilt was there. I was caught red-handed. I was dead to rights. It means guilt as certain as death. We're going to talk about legal proceedings today. We're going to talk about trials today. And the difference between the person we're going to talk about in my story as Joel Reynolds is the person we're talking about, Jesus Christ. His trial was very different than mine. I was dead to rights. I was guilty. I was caught. What about a legal proceeding where the person has no guilt? Has no charges that can be certainly said about him? The stories of his case are ones that are found in the book of Matthew. We'll look at it in just a second. But what we need to see and understand contextually before we turn to the word is this man was innocent. This man was not. The person we're talking about today, Jesus, was innocent. Me, dead to rights. The case for Jesus, or the lack thereof, is what we're going to look at in today's two pericopes. We're going to look at two in Mark chapter 14, and Mark chapter 15. They're pretty close together. So if you want to read along with me, wherever you sit in your chew or at the green bean or at the gym, wherever you're picking up Wi-Fi, we're going to look at Mark chapter 14, starting in verse 55, and look at the trial of Jesus before one group, and then we'll jump over to chapter 15, and we're going to look at the trial of Jesus in front of another group. This is what it says in the Word in Mark chapter 14. Now the chief priests and the whole council were seeking testimony against Jesus to put him to death, but they found none. For many bore false witnesses against him, but their testimony did not agree. And some stood up and bore false witness against him, saying, "We heard him say, I will destroy the temple that is made with hands, and in 3 days I will build another, not made with hands." Yet even about this their testimony did not agree. And the high priest stood up in the midst and asked Jesus, "Have you no answers to make?" But Jesus remained silent and made no answer. And again the high priest asked him, "Are you Christ, the Son of God, the blessed?"